Hey, Chanel here. So I'm starting to film a new class, and I'm going to call it Sewing Lingo, something like that. And I thought I'd share bits of it with you, my Facebook friends, and kind of teach you a few things in little snippets, as I'm going to call them. I think I'll just call them, I'm not sure. So Chanel sewing bits, snippets, not sure. Working on it. But I taught a class last year called Fashion Lingo, Be in the Know, and that was for students, fashion design students who are starting jobs in the fashion business, and they find themselves as an intern or getting paid, starting in the design houses right away. And you know, when they're hearing all these words that they're not used to, like tech pack or piece dye, over dye, croquis, you know, like they're going, what does that mean? So I thought compiled them all into one short 30-minute class and just went over a lot of the things that they would hear. So I'm going to do that the same with my sewing classes and have them online for my students that are here in the studio and then online students, and just kind of go over some basic pieces that you find in these instruction books. These are not books, but the instructions and the patterns. But in my beginner classes, we kind of take all our students step by step through learning different things, like right sides together, sewing casings and hems and things like that. And we don't go through a lot of the patterns yet, because I find these can really frustrate people. And my goal is progress, not perfection. And I also don't want you to get frustrated, because I know when I was learning to sew, I got very frustrated and trying to, trying to read these and figure out what they're saying and looking at the illustrations that made no sense. It's very frustrating. And when you get frustrated with something, you give up. And my goal is for you not to give up until you've at least really tried. So sewing is not that hard once you do it a few times, and it's also really rewarding when you actually get it, so it's pretty fun. But my first one I want to go over is understitching, and this is the directions. I think they use this illustration in most patterns because I've seen it over and over again when I was searching for this. But it says understitch. It says understitch by pressing facing and seam away from garment, comma, stitching through facing and seam allowances close to seam. What would help here is if they said, maybe put it in bullets. So pressing it, which is key to really good garment making, by the way. And I think a lot of people skip that step. And if you press it first, just a little short press at this part, and then stitch it, it looks more professional. It just goes together so much better. And then it says to do stitching through the facing and seam allowances. When I was learning to sew, I would read this probably 20 times, that sentence, and looking at that illustration, which made no sense. And now it's really clear to me. The illustrations just pop out, because I can say you end up really knowing the keys without having to keep looking at them. Like the shaded side means right side up. The hashtags is not an Instagram hashtag. It means interfacing. And then also the white part, or the non-shaded part, is the wrong side. So this is saying it's the right sides together. It's showing me the seam. It's showing me the stitch. It's showing me then the next stitch here. And then tailing off means it just keeps on going. So it starts to really make clear the more you look at these. So I'm going to show you how we do this. And I made up a couple little mock-up copies here. And I stitched it 5/8. And then I clipped the curves. And then the first step says to press it, so we're going to press it. Okay, so now we have our garment on the ironing board. And what it says is that we're going to understitch by pressing the facing, here's your facing, and the seam right here away from the garment. Here's your garment, so away from the garment, like this. So we're going to take the facing and go away from it, and we're just going to get in close to where the seam is at, and we want it to be real flush that way. And all we can use on here is the tip. I mean, if you use the rest of it, you're going to be creasing all this. And also, you don't want to crease the garment so much too, so what you might want to do is use a ham, and you can actually get into corners a little bit easier here, like this. I've also clipped the seams here, which is another topic I'll talk about. Clipping the seams, really important whenever it's a curve, because it helps the fabric roll over. So I'm just going to get all the edges in the seam kind of pressed. It doesn't have to be really, you know, majorly down, because we're going to go and stitch it, but we just want to help it out right here. So now it's all pressed. We'll take this to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we have our garment and our facing ready to sew, and what we're going to do is put our facing into the smaller archway here, and we're going to make sure our seam allowance is coming out this way. The pressing helps it stay there, but it still might want to, especially if it's got clips, it might want to roll underneath, so you all along make sure it's staying out. So we're just going to start here right at the edge, and then you can give it an over or a back stitch. You want to also stitch maybe a little less than 1/4 of an inch, so it's not too close, because too close doesn't work and too far away doesn't work. You end up with a lot of little tucks. So you want to get right in to the about 1/4 of an inch. We're just going to start here and just do a little back stitch, and I'm making sure this is real smooth here. And these are curves, so you're really working this fabric. You're just going, give it a little pull. I can see there's one little tucks that want to happen, and all along too I'm making sure this facing or the seam allowance is staying put and out. It's not rolling under, and it helps. I can see through this facing too, so it helps that way, but sometimes you can't. Just gonna sew a little back stitch there, and then we have it stitched. And then it will roll here. So now I'm going to go press it. Well, there is my final project, although it's nothing. I pressed this, and it really, once you press it too, when you press that facing to the inside, it really helps it stay down. So you can see, like if this were a neck facing, how it just stays completely down. You don't see any of the white. It's not rolling up at all. It's just staying straight down, and just looks nice and professional and smooth. Here is another one that I clipped the curves and everything, and then you try to roll the facing inside, and this is, you would press it and you can see how it wants to poke out. So I mean, you can see this a lot because of the contrast, but it would really struggle to press it to make it stay down, and you'd always see that facing roll up, and it's kind of what it looks like the other way. So this is without understitching and just doesn't lay as good. So don't bypass the understitching instructions. It really helps your garments look professional, lay really well, and give yourself a nice professional look. So I'll see you in the next sewing bit.